kind for main style, but I can do some. Sometimes I can work Goju Ryo Kata, for example, or something from Kempo or whatever. Do you feel that today is a little more open to that?
Yeah, because there is more information today.
Yeah.
And nowadays, everyone knows that there is nothing perfect.
Do you think that the open mind was also some kind of pressure from the social media, YouTube, etc.? I mean, in some ways, we cannot close our eyes and see that things don't exist.
To think, they start to put people thinking, just
Yeah.
I'm doing this for 20 years or 30 years, but someone says that this is the traditional, this is the correct way.
Yeah.
But I must think is what is karate?
Yeah.
That's really important.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know.
Yeah.
But let me check.
Hi everybody, welcome to Hybrid Karate. Today I'm here with a special guest. Is João Ramalho, Portuguese karate instructor, Goju Ryo instructor. He's a 6th degree black belt in Goju Ryo. He's someone that I will get my information from down here. Someone that has begun with judo in '83. Is an instructor since '93, karate instructor. He's also a level 3 in Kyushu. If you don't know about Kyushu, just search it in the web. It's about the pressure points, something that was before, even before the karate was born. Kyushu was already studied in Okinawa and other parts, Chinese, of course. He's also the founder, am I right? Kaizen Karate Portugal. Is that it?
One of the co-founders.
One of the co-founders. And is also a self-defense instructor in the, we may call it the National Guard, Guarda Nacional Republicana in Portugal. And he was also instructor in the operational battalion of the same National Guard, someone with lots of experience. So welcome, João Pedro Ramalho. Hope you're fine.
Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. Just trying to share with our viewers a bit of your life in martial arts and something about the beginning that you were. How did it start, martial arts for you?
Well, my approach to the martial arts, it started when I was very young. I just loved to watch kung fu movies.
Yeah.
Especially in the middles of the 70s, and I was always running around with a sword and jumping around and so on. But my father was against that kind of practices. Oh. So when I started to train, started to train on hidden. Without no one knows. So
yeah,
no one. My father was he was very, very strict on that subject.
Okay.
And I started to train in judo in the beginnings of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I trained it for 1 year, so I'm just a yellow belt.
Mm-hmm.
And then in around 86. I started to train karate.
Okay, great. I was 3 years old.
Since then, I never stopped.
Yeah, that's great. I was telling that I was 3 years old in '86. So you're old school.
Don't say that because it feels me. I feel like a very old
Sometimes
guy.
I feel I'm old school, but a young guy like you is even old school than myself. So that's great. So about karate, about Goju Ryo, how did it started? You started directly in Goju Ryo karate, or did you pass from other styles until you found Goju Ryo? How was that?
Well, when I started to train, I started to train karate like probably 99% of the people, because in the beginning we don't know the styles.
Yeah.
And so when I started to train, I started to train karate. Later I discovered that the name of the karate was Goju, and there were several styles, several different types of styles, completely different. Yeah. So when I started to train Goju, and I never changed it. I trained it with the years. I met a lot of people, different guys from other styles and so on, but I always stay focused on Goju.
Do you feel that right now people are more concerned about styles than back then in the 80s and in the 90s? Or do you feel that this different, if right now I see that people are open to talk with other styles. I mean, we talk with different styles. I've done Kaju Kempo for a long time, Kempo and Shotokan, but I'm talking with you, and I talk with several guys from box, from Muay Thai, whatever. But back then, only in karate, do you think that the style was important or so important as today? What do you feel about that?
In the old times, in the 80s and in the 90s, the style was very important.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of how can you say? Yeah, but not the kind of rivalry.
Not unhealthy.
Yeah. It was more healthy than this today.
Okay.
But it was really important for the people, because most of the practitioners, they identify themselves as a Goju practitioner or Shotokan or Shitoryu or Wado-ryu. So the style was really in depth. It was really important. Nowadays it's not so important.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel people are more open to different styles? And if, for example, I remember when I started Shotokan, people try to be very into this kind of work, into this kind of technique this way, the movement this way. But nowadays, I think that there's no problem if we look to other styles. And sometimes I do Shotokan for main style, but I can do some. Sometimes I can work Goju Ryukata, for example, or something from Kempo or whatever. Do you feel that today is a little more open to that?
Yeah, because there is more information today.
Yeah.
And nowadays, everyone knows that there's nothing perfect.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So sometimes when we look to other styles, how they train, how they approach the training process and everything, we see that sometimes in our style, some things are missing, Mm-hmm. So that's why nowadays most of the people, they like to see other styles, and yeah. So this idea was mainly in the end of the 90s.
Yeah.
When everyone started to have an open mind and started to try and other styles and other concepts and everything, and try to absorb on their own style.
Yeah.
So nowadays I think the minds are more, people have more open mind.
Yeah. Do you think that the open mind was also some kind of pressure from the social media, YouTube, etc.? I mean, in some ways we cannot close our eyes and see that things don't exist. Back in the 90s, we had our master. We followed this and that was it. Sometimes if you want to do something different or to learn something different, you had to go to another school, and sometimes it wasn't well seen. So do you think today the social media, mainly YouTube, pressured that kind of mentality?
Well, in the middle 90s, there was when we here in Portugal, we had more books coming from other countries, especially from Spain, France, England, United States, and most of the people that were really involved with martial arts, they went to the stores, they went to the books, they went to buy everything, because there was a need of information. Okay. So in the 90s, with the karate bushido from France, traditional karate from England, and cinturão negro from Spain and so on. All that kind of magazines, all that kind of movies. All that kind of magazines and books. They started to open the eyes and the mind of the people. Of course,
but was people instructors? Because nowadays we see, maybe my opinion, it's not for Christ's sake, it is not the right opinion, but in my opinion, in this time, in the 90s and early 2000s, people that were open to this were instructors or were some kind of advanced students, maybe. And nowadays, everybody has the same access. Do you think that?
I think everyone. I think everyone, not only students, but also instructors. When we talk with some older instructors, senior instructors, they tried everything. They can be top instructors in their own style, but if you talk with them, they train in Chituru, they train in judo, they train in aikido, and so on. So
that's the way to go, in your opinion.
Yes. So but of course the beginning of the 21st century, after 2000, when YouTube showed up and everything was exposed, and some closed minds that were thinking, and their speech was for this is the style, this is the correct, this is the traditional form, and so on. And all the information that YouTube brought to us started to put all the people, students, instructors thinking, they started to put people thinking, I'm doing this for 20 years or 30 years, but someone says that this is the traditional, this is the correct way. But let me check.
Let me check.
So
this was kind of the embracing a new, a more broad idea of sharing, maybe more broad idea of cross training. In your opinion?
Nowadays, if an instructor or a coach or whatever you want to call, if he's really in deep in the practice, in the teaching methods, he has to run around all sports, just to improve the training. He must go to the gymnastics to see the approach, the training approach. Probably he must go to the bodybuilding or body weight or strength approaches and so on biomechanicals, yogas and so on. So all this phenomenal
for developing martial art, for traditional martial art, you can also use that, not only for sport kind of martial arts. Do you agree? Because sometimes people think if you're going to learn something in a different sport or in a different way of method of training, that's for guys that do sport in karate or do sport in Muay Thai or do sport in whatever. I do not think like that. I think that maybe it's a little more open. Maybe if you do just karate for traditional karate, and if you're doing karate for self-defense or whatever, there are some things that you can improve in your training to achieve that. You don't need to be a sport guy to work that.
Well,
I think
this with this kind of discussion, it's one of the main things that most people must think is, what is karate?
Yeah,
that's really important. And we don't know. We know what we do now. Most people say, I do karate for self-defense, I do karate for self-improvement, I do karate for sports, and now we know what we do.
Yeah.
But what the old people, in the beginning of the word karate, most of the people, I don't think there is a sacred true, So I think, because in the beginning of the 20th century, in 1904, Itosu Wanku started to teach karate in school, in Okinawa school. But he felt the need to change several techniques, lots of techniques, because they were not considered ethical and social acceptable. So we had to change a lot of techniques.
Yeah.
So, and in 1904,
yeah,
karate wasn't yet karate. And if we see Tosuenko as the grandfather of modern karate, so we see that from the beginning everything was changing.
Yeah.
So there is no absolute truth.
So it's very hard to understand exactly what is karate, and sometimes I feel that today, and skipping to the karate jutsu part, maybe I feel that today people are really trying to make some kind of archaeological karate, in the sense that let's go dig in to see if this works like this or like that. So people normally start with the base, with bunkai or hoyo or whatever you want to call it, and then go from there and try to do self-defense from there. Do you feel that this is a polemic question, but do you feel that people are trying to justify karate, in a sense, justify the things that they are doing?
Well, historically,
yeah,
in the end of the 18th centuries, 1860s, the Meiji era on Japan. I think around 80-70 or something like that. Before, probably 69, 68.
The end of the 19th century.
Yes. There was a big change on Japanese society.
Yeah.
The traditional styles, that the Bujutsu traditional styles, they started to change the name.
Okay.
So there was a big need to remove the word jutsu and created the word do. Jutsu, it's a more combative word.
Yeah.
Do is a self-improvement.
Yeah, the path.
It's a self-improvement word. So this means that all the martial arts that were practicing in the old days, everyone, the normal citizen, could started to practice, and it's not only an exclusive practice for samurais from the military. From the military. So we are talking about 1868.
Okay.
So if we imagine that the first time karate was established as karate was 1926. So we have a huge gap between karate and jutsu.
Yeah.
So what people are doing is they are trying to mix, because karate was never a jutsu. It was never a jutsu. But some people can claim that, for example, Funakoshi Sensei, he wrote a book about karate jutsu. Well, in my opinion, the karate jutsu was that kind of book. It was a way of trying to integrate karate, that it was a secondary practice from the south of Japan. They are barbarians. They were not considered Japanese. Yeah. It was a try to integrate the practice on Japanese society. Nothing more.
Okay.
Because historically, like I said, the word jutsu was excluded in 1868, and the word karate was created in 1926, I think, if I remember.
Okay. So there's not a direct link.
No. I think the main problem and the need to create this connection between karate and karate jutsu, it's because the word do.
Yeah.
Because most of the people, when you are really involved in fighting arts, for example, like Kempo, like Kaju Kempo, and so on. Mm-hmm. When you started to talk about Do, most of the people, they think that Do, it's a word of self-improvement. So it excludes completely the fighting aspects, the self-defense aspects of karate. So it's not an effective thing. So mm-hmm. that's what. So because when you talk about Do, you are concerned with development of the individual, and when you talk about jutsu, you are not about of effective fighting. So that's why most of the people, that's why some people, when they use the term karate jutsu, that's the way how they think that they sell they sell a good product, because I'm here teaching a fighting method, not a self-improvement method. Okay. But in my opinion, both are together.
Yeah, of course. So today, if someone tries to understand karate in a karate jutsu mentality, the question for me is, they are self-learning, they are searching, they are doing their research, but maybe that it's hard to have their masters. What have they teach? This part wasn't teach directly from their masters, but it's something that it's more and more being developed by themselves with their own
perspective. By themselves, yeah, definitely. Because nowadays, I think we know this is going to be on YouTube, right? Yeah. So I'm just going to. Nowadays, I think we are more informed, we know more about karate than the older instructors, because we have a lot of information that they didn't have in their time. Mm-hmm. So we understand more our biomechanics, how we move, what the kind of positions that we do, the kind of strikes, the muscles that are involved, and so on. So that's my opinion. I think if you are listening this, please don't kill the messenger.
Actually, we talked about it before, and yes, that's also my way of seeing things. For example, in Kaju Kempo, that was a style that was developed in 47, early 50s. They already had this idea of cross-training, understanding the mixing of the different arts, and they have lots of influences from karate that we will talk maybe later in the conversation. But the main point was that this was open to development. Okay, and when I learned karate starting in 92, I think, or a little early, when I started to learn karate, and when people learned karate in the 90s, in the 80s, in the 70s, it wasn't so broad like today. It wasn't so open to self-development. And nowadays, I think people are searching for that. So I think it's good, but is it a search for justifying something that doesn't need to be justified? This is my question. Hard question, maybe.
Hard question. I think the karate jutsu movement, mm-hmm. it's more a Western movement instead of Japanese movement.
Yeah, that's good. So maybe it was also influenced by karate development in Europe and United States and whatever.
Well, I think this is my personal opinion. Yeah. I think the karate jutsu, it was more English. It was more an English movement, mm-hmm. instead of European or American or whatever. Yeah. Because when you see a lot of the experts of karate jutsu experts, mm-hmm. Especially the first ones, mm-hmm. you see lots of boxing. You see a lot of boxing movements on you know, just the bobs and the wavings and the way out they put the hands, and that's the fight approach. That's the fighting approach of karate. And karate was created for self-defense, not for fighting. That's because it's two different concepts. It's two different concepts. One concept is to fight. Another concept is to self-defense. And I think this is my opinion. I think the original idea of karate for self-defense, it was more like a Krav Maga approach. You know, you have one strike, you block, and you counter and you counter. But then, as the starts start to progress, you must feel that if the technique doesn't work, if this sequence doesn't work, you have to fight.
Okay.
So, like in Portugal, we say, then you have to have nails to play the guitar, and that's why the fighting process in karate it started. This is
already implicit after Itosowanko, after karate was mainstreamed in Okinawa. Do you think that the self-defense part was there for everybody? This part arrived in Europe, it arrived in other countries, in the United States or Hawaii, or it stayed very simplified? What do you think? In general, in different styles.
I think the mainstream approach that we talked before with Itosuwanku. I think the approach, it was more like a gymnastic.
So
I think
there were things that weren't there in terms of self-defense.
Yeah, I don't think so. Probably people could talk a little bit of, well,
or maybe they were there for some guys. I mean, you have
recruiting students.
No,
they were recruiting students.
Yeah, for sure. But was that this part, this self-defense part, this jutsu part, was it hidden or was available for every karate practitioner? Or was more of a
no. I think it wasn't the martial. Let's talk about. I don't like to use the martial aspect, but the fighting aspect. I think it was taught only for a few students, not for the general public. So I think.
So maybe today people are trying to search for that kind of information, maybe. So
yeah, definitely, definitely. Because today, I like the work. For example, nowadays you have one of here in Europe. Lots of people talk about, for example, Vinicius, the Brazilian guy that came from Shotokan and so on.
He does MMA.
His approach of karate jutsu. His approach of karate jutsu, if you see him, it's a lot of jiu-jitsu, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But if you talk, for example, about Ian Abernethy, that is on the business for more than 20 years on karate jutsu.
Yeah.
If you see him working, you see that his approach is more like a boxing, like a fighting style, fighting style, wherever you want to call kickboxing or wherever. So, yes, yeah.
So my question again is that approach an approach that was made in Western environment for you put your Western glasses and you try to make karate more applicable, or you go somewhere to Okinawa to learn that.
No, you don't. Another one, please. Forgive me. Don't kill the messenger.
Sorry.
Some years ago, a Japanese instructor told me once that good karate at this moment it's in Europe.
Yeah.
because you guys took karate to another level, to another physical level. Most of the people in Japan, they don't train, they don't see karate like you European guys, like you do.
Yeah.
And if you go to the karate organizations, especially the organizations that they are connected with the main karate organizations, you see lots of top guys, lots of Western guys on the top.
Yeah.
And you see most of them leaving the organizations because they don't recognize technical level or physical level or mental level to the Japanese that they put in front of the organization. So that's why they leave. That's why most of them, they leave the organization, because the European level is. I'm going to talk about the European level. No, I'm not going to talk about the other continental levels. But the European level is very, very high, because most of the people that are involved with karate, those that knows a master or heard about an old instructor that he went to Japan to train, and he suffered a lot. He was completely beaten, and so on. And that kind of training builds
resilience, maybe.
Resilience, yeah.
But
he created a killing machine, or a guy that suffers a lot. And when he returns to Europe, he was completely beaten. He was a gaijin. He was not welcome to Japan, but he stayed. He was, like you said, resilient, and he kept training. He stayed there training for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And when he returned, he tried to
go back again with João Pedro Ramalho, 6th-degree black belt of Goju Rio. We had a small stop over in our interview and talk.
I live in a small village north from Portugal. It is that is a surf.
North from Lisbon.
Reserve, yeah. Sorry?
North of Lisbon, not from Portugal.
North of Lisbon, yeah. It is in the north of Lisbon. It's a 50 km from Lisbon, and it's
very beautiful.
It's a small village. It's a small village, and we have all that problems with that small village. The internet is not so powerful, and so on. But
but you have good surf waves, and
fortunately.
And one of the best seafood around. So if you go, you have to pay double, but you can contact João Pedro Ramalho to eat marisco.
Yeah, you can go to any restaurant and say that you go. You can say my name and you pay double. Don't worry.
So we were talking about karate do, karate jutsu, and the different European developments that, and also right now American and other countries, but we know more about Europe. So in your opinion, karate was kind of better developed into self-defense and into applications, also by the influence of European masters and whatever. So, for example, I remember that in France, where I'm at right now, the Master Kaze, for example, he is a very good reference.
Very famous in France.
Yeah, and he was one of the developers of karate in France. And for example, in France, also this karate jutsu movement is very strong. So I feel that there are open minds, and there are also things that Europeans put it in karate in order to make it.
One of the main problems with karate is that most people they know they understand that Okinawa is in Japan, but the Japanese way of thinking and the Okinawa way of thinking, it's completely different. When you go to Okinawa, and for example, when you go to Okinawa and you manage something, a meeting or a training with someone, and you say, for example, okay, we are going to train at 5 p.m., for example. 5 p.m. in Okinawa is Okinawa 5 p.m. So it means that it's something like 30 minutes later or something like that.
Yeah.
In Japan, if you go to train in a dojo and you say 5 p.m., 4:49, 4:49, 4:50, the guys they are already there. So it's a different way of thinking, because Okinawa it's more it's a small island. It's more hot. Also, it's the weather. It's more tropical.
Yeah,
and the people are more relaxed. So one of the main problems is that most of our references in karate are Japanese.
Okay. Yeah.
And the Japanese think in a different way of the Okinawan. Most of the people say, "Oh, but that wasn't the best because now people they are more Japanese, they are more integrated and so on." No, it's wrong. No. It's one of the famous masters that I met a few years ago. A guy came to him and said, "Oh, do you know this guy? Do you know this guy? Do you know this sensei?" All Japanese masters. You know this Japanese sensei. No, I don't know him. And it was a quite famous names.
Okay.
And I look at him and said, something strange here. There's something strange. And after on the end of the day, I was talking with him, and he said to me, Pedro, because in Japan they call me Pedro.
Yeah.
Because it's more easy to pronounce.
It's easier.
Pedro, Okinawa masters, they don't have to know Japanese masters. Japanese masters, they have to know Okinawa masters, because karate is not Japanese.
Yeah.
Karate is from Okinawa. No. And it was 2 years ago. So it's not so integrated like people like to think that, it's Japanese, so everything is the same. No, it's not. It's not the same. And our main problem, and you're talking about kaze and the movement karate jutsu and so on, the main problem is that the karate that we European people we had, it was mainly influenced by Japanese instructors.
Yeah.
So the karate that we do, especially people that do Okinawa karate, for example, most of the people that they think they do traditional karate, no, they don't do traditional karate. They do Japanese karate.
Yeah, that's different.
That's one.
Karate.
Yeah. And I had that experience, and I'm trying to improve my traditional karate to go more to Okinawa, because the organization where I was, it was very strict. It was very Japanese way, just a chief instructor, a national chief instructor. So everything was it was very strict. It was very strict on hierarchy. Nowadays, the organization that I belong, it's not so strictly. We respect the older ones, we respect the seniors, and so on. But it's more easygoing.
Yeah, that's good.
So I think
development.
So I think
mentality.
So I think the idea of karate jutsu that is evolved with some older and former Japanese instructors here in Europe, it's more related with European mentality and a mix between European and Japanese mentality. It doesn't have nothing to do with the karate that it was learned and taught in Okinawa in the beginning of the 20th century.
Exactly. I agree with you, and actually, I think that sometimes we, in general, in martial arts, whatever that the martial art may be, people have sometimes they need to justify the history in a very romancized way, like something that people always talk about, the Bodhidharma or Tamu, and then they have to justify all these things. But sometimes it's just something that was made in this spot right here in Europe or whatever, in the United States or Brazil, but it was developed developed within the mentality from that place. So it's kind of it's impossible to see the developing. For example, I will talk about the Hawaiian Kempo, and maybe we can talk a little bit about it. Hawaiian Kempo and later Kempo. For those that don't know what Kempo word means, it's just like boxing, like Chuan Fa, the
law fist.
Yeah, the law of
the law fist.
The translation of Chuan Fa, the English, sorry, the Chinese term for Japanese. So when Kempo was talked about in Japan or in Okinawa, was like a mother art. But the Okinawan Kempo or the Japanese Kempo and Hawaiian Kempo, they are different. They are not really the same, because in Hawaii there was a special environment, and in Okinawa there was also a special environment when karate was made. So they cannot be the same. And in Europe, if you're talking again about karate jutsu, maybe in Europe there's also this kind of influence of European karate jutsu. It's not. It's not like the old master, old Okinawa special, etc. Because we are used to a different kind of violence. We are used to a different kind of open-minded, maybe way of seeing things. So it's normal that that's different. So
you see that when we talk about karate.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people relates karate with the Asian practice of Japan, or all that traditional stuff and all that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in our subconscious, most of the people, they try to justify their practices with the traditional.
Yeah.
So it's a way of justify and gives more credibility. It gives more credibility to the practice himself.
Yeah.
If you say no, this is the real traditional karate.
Yeah.
And for example, with all respect for I have a lot of friends on other styles, but when you listen people talking about traditional karate, most of them, they are talking about Shotokan.
Mm-hmm.
For example, people that they are not so informed about what is karate.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people, they see, so traditional karate is Shotokan. No, traditional, in this case, for example, Shotokan is one of the recent styles of karate. It was created in Japan. It was Funakoshi that he went to Okinawa, to Japan, to Tokyo, because he was a scholar, and he started to teach. So what he started to teach, it was not a traditional karate from Okinawa, because when he started to teach karate, he started to teach in the universities.
For sure.
And all that kind of emotions and ideas of nationalism that we are talking pre-war. So all that kind of mentality, trying to put again the samurai spirit again, and all that kind of art training and so on. Yeah. So most of the people say, this is traditional karate. No, it's not traditional karate.
Traditional karate, like the idea of traditional karate, when we talk about it, and maybe we think about Shotokan and this kind of working framework, it's a modern karate more than a traditional karate. So it's,
because traditional karate is not so how can I say in English, it's not so strict. It doesn't have so much rituals, such like, if, for example, everyone lines up, everyone says that, and everyone mokuso, breathing and so on, and it's more an easygoing. It's more an easygoing practice. You go, you arrive to the dojo, you bow the sensei, you bow the seniors, and so on, and you started to practice on your own on the corner of the dojo. Mm-hmm. And as long when you became senior, you're starting to move forward the front, the shaman, the forward of the dojo.
Yeah.
and the seniors, they help the juniors and so on. So
it's kind of
it's more easy.
As you know, I started in karate, then I started to learn kempo and also kaju kempo. So I started with this strict way of teaching and learning, and then when I passed to kaju kempo and to kempo Hawaiian influenced kempo, I was exactly working like that. So it's a more relaxed. There's also the militarized, if you want to call it, way of practicing, but mainly if you can. Even if you go to Hawaii or if you go to other ways of working, you will see that you will. I'm sorry, this someone is knocking. You will see that you will find also this kind of relaxed way of training that you.
Yeah. It's more island. It's a more island way of thinking and to be in the society.
Yeah.
Just more easy going.
Yeah. So karate. Also influenced kempo styles in Hawaii. So, for example, Kentsuyabu, other masters were in Hawaii back in the early 900s. So, 1927, I think, and the 1930s were years that masters were going to Hawaii and trying to pass on the teachings of karate. So for me, this is very important because it was almost at the same time that was happening in Japan. So I think that this influence, I don't know what you have to tell me about this, but this influence was a very contemporary. Like in the same time, it was happening in Japan, and it was happening almost in the same time in Hawaii. There is a kind of a direct source happening in Hawaii, and I think this influenced also the kempo in Hawaii, mainly the kempo that we talked today at Parker's American Kempo also. That he was also an Hawaiian kempo, Kosho and Kaju Kempo, for example. Just to say some styles. What do you think? Do you think that was some kind of connection? Maybe if it wasn't like a direct connection, but what do you think about it?
Well, we must understand that Okinawa is one of the poorest regions of Japan. So one of the poorest prefectures of Japan. So there are a lot of people from Okinawa. Then, especially after the war, they left, and before the war also, the Second World War. But especially after the Second World War, they left Okinawa. But
there's a lot of immigration for the sugar plantations back in early 1900s. There are about the Japanese diaspora and Okinawan diaspora. Mainly the Okinawans were going to Hawaii back in 900s, early 20s.
Yeah, because they were living, they were very, very poor. And we know that for example, we have the same year in Europe at these moments, with the Africans, with the Muslims and so on. The communities, it makes part of the history. When you have a short community, most of the peoples, they surrounded themselves about the communities because they speak the same language, they share the same traditions and so on. And with the Okinawa people in Hawaii, I think it was the same idea, So they had a strong group, they had a strong community. They created a strong community in Hawaii, and there were several occasions that they invited people from several areas, from several arts, from whatever you want. They invited people to go to Hawaii to share and to remember also. And probably what happened is that some people that practiced martial arts, in this case karate, Okinawa karate, they practiced karate in Okinawa. When they moved to Hawaii, probably they invited their instructors or some people. So
there are historical registers of that. Actually, for example, even Mutubuchoki was in Hawaii. He was invited to demonstrate and to make some fights with locals in Hawaii. But he wasn't allowed to enter Hawaii.
But because of the immigration,
it was in Mauna port for a while, and he had some contact with Okinawan friends that were already in Hawaii. He teaches people, I think, but they weren't able to take him off the custody of the authority.
The complex,
But Yabukensu was also there before.
Yabukensu, I think Yabukensu was the first one.
Yeah,
like you said, in 1957.
He had already family back then in Hawaii, and he had a lot of exchanges with Hawaiian people. Even Hawaiian people, I mean, that Okinawan mainly that lived in Hawaii. But even if they haven't make the step to make an official school back then or make official teachings, I think there was also some influence. If they were, for example, even there are demonstrations that show that we have historical records of that. But besides these demonstrations, maybe there was already some kind of training going on. Maybe, of course, they were preoccupied about their own living, about their own work, but of course they were also able to exchange about karate and exchange about karate techniques and development. Because, for example, Hawaii was a very interesting place for masters back then. I'm just making a little pause, João. Fazer uma pequena pausa porque tenho aqui o vizinho embaixo a bater com o martelo e eu acho que vai aparecer aqui no vídeo.
Shitoryu is the same. It's the same thing. It's an evolution.
Yeah.
You every year. I'm joking, but every year you see a new kata.
Opinion. There's kind of too much of a kata oriented self-defense. Do you think this is good? This is bad? This is historical? This is practical? What do you think?